Good morning, everyone. My name is Sabrina Kofer, and on behalf of Choice and ACRL, I'd like to welcome you to today's program, Answer Complex Research Questions by Promoting Cross-Department Collaborations, which is sponsored by ProQuest, part of Clarivate. This session is one in a series of sponsored webinars from Choice and ACRL that addresses new ideas and developments of interest to the academic library community. Before we get started, I'd like to point out just a few features of the webinar software. All of the attendees who join the presentation are automatically muted and your cameras are off, so don't worry about generating any noise or feedback. We've got that taken care of for you. In the main area of the screen, you can follow along with the presentation materials. We are using the Q&A feature today. Please use it to ask questions of our speakers. We'll answer as many questions as we have time for at the end of the presentation, so please do type your questions into the Q&A module as they occur to you. Also note that there is closed captioning available for today's session. To toggle the automated captions on or off, please use the CC button on the bottom right corner of your screen. Last, please note that we are recording today's program and everyone who registered should receive a follow-up email with a link to the archive version. And with that, we are ready to get started, so I will hand it over to Mindy.
Thank you, Sabrina, and good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us for this session, as Sabrina already mentioned, about answering complex research questions by promoting cross-department collaborations. We're going to talk with a couple of our associates and partners, and we want to go through. Emily will start us through a researcher perspective, and then Kara will follow up with a librarian perspective, and then I'll quickly close us out to really talk about our approach at ProQuest Clarivate. So just for a quick introduction for our speakers, I want to introduce Emily Prud'hommeaux, who is the Giannino Family Sesquicentennial Assistant Professor in the Department of Computer Science at Boston College. Her research area is natural language processing in the subfield of artificial intelligence, dealing with generating, analyzing, and understanding human language. And then following Emily, we'll hear from Kara Handren, who is a data librarian at the Map and Data Library for the University of Toronto, where she provides support for data discovery and analysis across the university's St. George campus. Kara holds a Master of Arts and Master of Information, both from the University of Toronto. But really quickly, before we get started, we're just going to start with a quick poll, and then we'll hand it off to Emily to get us started. So you'll have about 30 seconds really here to answer the poll, but just one quick question about how often are you actively fielding questions about text and data analysis? You have three options here: never, once in a while, or all the time. So we'll just give you a few more seconds to answer that question, just so we can get a good idea of how often everybody is really dealing with these sorts of requests. And then we can talk throughout the presentation how to handle some of those requests. Great. So we have a good portion of you. It looks like 70% of you from anywhere from once in a while to all the time, and 30% of you never. So that's interesting. So that's great. So we'll hand it off to Emily to get us started. And over to you, Emily.
Hi, everyone. I'm Emily Prud'hommeaux. I'm an assistant professor in the Department of Computer Science at Boston College, and I'm going to be telling you a little bit about a project I'm involved in, which we were able to sort of really make a lot of progress on using TDM Studio, one of the ProQuest platforms for interacting with text. This is joint work with some colleagues. And the way I got together with these colleagues is that Boston College has this internal grant opportunity called the Research Across Departments and Schools grant. And it encourages people from different colleges within the university to get together to work on projects that would be impossible for them to do just alone in their discipline. And they're actually pretty generous. It was $50,000 for a year, which for an internal grant is quite nice. And we were able to actually get quite a lot done. These are my colleagues I've been working with, Dr. Nadia Abuelezam is an epidemiologist in the nursing school at Boston College, and Dr. Andres Castro Samayoa is in the School of Education. And they are both interested in issues relating to diversity and the experience of minoritized populations. And in particular, they're very interested in quantitative methods. Sort of once they have a bunch of data, how can they sort of analyze it to learn more about the experience of minoritized people? And the problem in this case was getting the data that they were interested in, which I'll talk about in a second, which is why they reached out to me, a computer scientist. So the particular issue we are interested in is looking at health disparities, in particular, how health disparities are researched by the research community. So what are health disparities? Differences in health status that systematically negatively impact less advantaged groups. And these are just some publications that sort of typify what I'm talking about. For instance, Black mothers have much higher rates of pregnancy mortality. And that's an example of a health disparity. We don't really understand fully why this is happening, but it seems to be differentially impacting Black communities. Poverty, socioeconomic status is another area in which health disparities play a role. Women often do not have different presentations of something like cardiac arrest, and as a result actually have higher mortality, but are not often the subject of clinical trials. And Native American, Alaska Native populations also suffer from health disparities. So what we're studying here is not the actual health disparities themselves, but research on health disparities. We want to know who is studying health disparities and why do people continue in this research area, or why might they switch to different research areas? Scholarship in this area can actually help to mitigate these differences that we see, these different outcomes that we see that vary according to race, ethnicity, gender, socioeconomic status. But what's interesting in particular about health disparities is that researchers in this area are more likely to be from minoritized groups themselves than researchers in other areas. And there's also evidence that people from minority groups, women and people from underrepresented ethnic and racial groups are less likely to receive awards from external funding agencies. So we're trying to figure out what is it that, how do researchers in these areas, what are their research trajectories like? Are people leaving the field, and if so, why? So the challenge here is that there's a lot of data that we need to collect. We want to know who wrote their dissertations about health disparities, and then what did they go on to do? Did they continue to publish in that area? Did they publish in other areas? And this is actually kind of difficult data to get. It's very easy to search PubMed for publications, but dissertations are internationally, and certainly in the United States and Canada, are stored by ProQuest. And ProQuest is a proprietary database, the ProQuest dissertation database. And so in order to interact with that, we needed some assistance from ProQuest. So this was our data collection workflow that we had planned out. And I'll tell you a little bit about how we were able to do that with the help of TDM Studio. So the very first thing we wanted to do was search in ProQuest for dissertations that might have been about health disparities. So we did a keyword search, which is the basic way to do searching for things like health disparities, health inequities, different descriptors for minoritized groups, Black, Native American, Alaska Native, women, and words like that. But of course, when you do that, you get way more results than are actually relevant. So we do the search and we get a set of potentially relevant dissertations in the thousands and thousands, and most of which are actually not about health disparities. So we need to figure out which ones are not about health disparities, the not relevant ones, and which ones are relevant, which ones are actually about health disparities. Once we have that set of dissertations, we know who the target researchers are. We understand who are the researchers whose career trajectories and publication trajectories we actually want to follow. From there, we can take that list of authors and search in the PubMed data set, which is all of the publications having to do at least something with medicine. And we can use their API. Then we can get a list of authors per publications per author, some of which will be not relevant, some of which will be relevant. And then for each author who wrote their dissertation on health disparities, we will know their full publication history within the medical research field. So this is the data that we need to understand who is publishing, who's leaving the field. But this is the challenge here. How do we take that set of thousands and thousands of potentially relevant dissertations that matched our keyword search and figure out which ones are actually about health disparities and which one are not? So remember, only a subset of these dissertations matching the keywords are relevant. So we need to be able to figure out which ones are and which ones are not. And that's where I come in. My research area is natural language processing, which is the branch of artificial intelligence that uses computational models to process, analyze, generate, and understand human language. And you use NLP every day. A Google search is powered by NLP. How does Google know exactly what you're talking about when you say, for instance, if you say sofa, it's going to come up with matches for couch. Spelling correction. This is one of my favorite spelling corrections of all time. That one time I tried to type Harvard Square and my phone wanted to replace Harvard with garbage. It doesn't do that anymore. Text prediction. So when you start typing on your phone and it predicts what the next word is, and all of those devices that you might be using and software that you might be using like Siri, Alexa, Google Home, things like that, they're all using natural language processing. So models of human language can be used for these applications like this, or they can be used to help us classify or identify documents according to, the sentiment of the author, the identity of the author, perhaps their political slant, their overall topic. And there have been really great, sort of astounding developments in modeling language in the last 5 years or so using deep learning. And this is a classic one called BERT, which is, whenever people draw pictures of it, it has this like mysterious neural network inside of it. But basically, it allows you to take a sentence or a document and then to predict something about it. And in this case, we want to take an abstract and a title of a dissertation and figure out, is it actually about health disparities or not? So we were able to access all of the information contained in all of the dissertations that have been filed in the past, however long century. We were able to extract the ones we wanted using the keywords and then to process those and to try to predict which ones were relevant and not relevant using the TDM Studio platform, which you're going to hear more details about soon. So the challenge here is that the ProQuest dissertation database is proprietary, but ProQuest actually gives you this, it's a really sophisticated platform, TDM Studio, that lets you do almost anything you might want to be able to do with machine learning and neural networks. So remember, we have thousands of dissertations matching keywords, and what we're going to do is randomly select a subset of those. And then we are going to have a human being, this is a graduate student I work with, we're going to have a human being classify them according to whether they are about health disparities or whether they are not about health disparities. So we have tens of thousands or thousands of dissertations matching the keyword. We want a small set of them. We take a small set of them. We have a human actually go through and say which ones are about health disparities and which ones are not. We then put those examples through this BERT language model, which is able to learn when it sees an abstract and a title, which ones are actually about health disparities and which one are not. This is called fine tuning. It's a huge model that's trained on lots and lots of data, and then you can fine tune it to your own particular task. We then take all of the dissertations that we're matching the keywords, we run it through this model that we've trained to figure out whether things are about or not about health disparities. And we get output for all of the dissertations that could potentially be about health disparities. We have it figure out for us whether they are relevant or not relevant. And we got about 89% accuracy when we did this. And we did the same thing for PubMed articles. So we took all the authors we found who did write about health disparities in their dissertation. We got all of the articles written by them from PubMed, and then we took those articles and figured out which ones were about health disparities and which ones were not. So I wanted to show you just a few of our very preliminary results. We really just finished that whole data collection process about a month ago. What we're finding is, and not surprisingly, the number of dissertations on health disparities has been increasing very steadily since about 2000. There was very little work on that previously, but it isn't continuing to increase. Another thing we discovered is that a third of authors who did write their dissertations about health disparities don't go on to publish within the first 5 years after after filing their dissertation. So here we're just looking at authors who filed before 2018. A third of them are not publishing at all. And only about 1/6 go on to publish a single article after 5 or more years. So a lot of people are dropping out of this field. It's not clear whether they're abandoning research and going to work in industry, or whether they've switched to a different field. And that's sort of what we're going to be looking at. So we want to know which researchers are the ones who are, going on to publish 1 paper a year on health disparities, and which ones, what kind of people are ending up publishing 15 articles per year. So those are the sorts of questions we hope to be able to answer with this data set. We want to know the common characteristics of knowledge producers, who are the ones leaving the field, who are the ones going on to publish extensively. When they do leave, what do they do instead? Is it the case that people aren't publishing in this field because they're not getting enough funding to support that kind of research? And then we're also interested in exploring how things like race, ethnicity, gender, socioeconomic status, region of the country, prestige of the degree granting institution, all of those different things can contribute to what people end up doing and what their research trajectories look like. So I wanted to say a little bit before passing to Kara that it was great for me. I found TDM Studio and I emailed my librarian, the librarian that's assigned to my department, and she figured everything out that we needed to do. She talked to ProQuest about how we could arrange things and get a trial. And this would not have been possible without my librarian figuring out how to do it, figuring out how to get the university support a license for TDM Studio. And otherwise that dissertation information would not have been available to us, and we would really not be able to complete this project. So now I will pass things off to Kara.
Awesome, thank you, Emily. Just going to turn my video back on here. And there we go. So hi, my name is Kara Handren, and I'm a data librarian at the University of Toronto. And I'm going to kind of lead off from Emily's wonderful presentation about her project. And I'm going to talk about the experience at U of T in supporting text and data mining and projects such as the one Emily has been working on, and specifically about the experience that I've had at the Map and Data Library where I work. So before I start, I wanted to highlight that this really is an evolving area, and we've had to work hard to ensure that we're known as a destination for support and guidance for our researchers, faculty, and students at all levels, as well as for other librarians and colleagues. To be perfectly honest, a year and a half ago, I did not do any specific TDM support, and now it's a large and growing area of my day-to-day practice and of the practice of some of my colleagues as well. So I'm hoping that this experience will be insightful to others who are at different stages of navigating this space. So first, I just wanted to speak briefly about U of T. So we are a large multidisciplinary research institution. So we have many user groups with various and evolving data needs. At the moment, U of T has just under 100,000 students, of which 3/4 are undergrads spread across 700 programs, and the rest are graduate students. We also have 15,000 faculty members. So this is quite a large list, but it includes anyone with teaching and research responsibilities, as well as 163 librarians who are spread across 40 libraries on 3 campuses. At the Map and Data Library in particular, we have 9 full-time staff members, of which 6 are librarians. Okay, so that's U of T, but how does the scope of our institution and our varying needs impact the support we need to provide in terms of text and data mining? So first, I want to define what I mean when I'm talking about TDM. So I have this quote here that I really like from Mark Anawis in 2014. And he said that text mining can be defined as the analysis of semi-structured or unstructured text data. The goal is to turn text information into numbers so that data mining algorithms can be applied. So while TDM is an umbrella term and a shorthand I'll be using today, the projects I'm largely talking to today and kind of the need for support that we're seeing within our library mostly involve text mining. So working with completely unstructured data such as books, journals, and newspaper articles, and working with semi-structured data such as the metadata about those data. Researchers at U of T have been involved in text mining for well over a decade. For example, in 2019, Ian Lancashire from the Department of English collaborated with Graham Hurst in the Department of Computer Science to study vocabulary changes in novels in an attempt to see if changes in the language used by authors could indicate the onset of dementia. More recently, however, we are beginning to see a significant growth in the number of these collaborative projects. And we were also increasingly seeing text analysis techniques being applied by students in traditionally data light fields such as English or history, and in projects without external collaborators. These shifts have resulted in a huge increase in demand, which has led to a need to build additional supports. Okay, so I wanted to provide, before I go further, just a couple of examples of questions we've been getting over the past year related to text and data mining. So from a teaching context, we're seeing questions like, how can I provide context and visualizations of TDM concepts like n-grams or sentiment analysis without requiring my students to learn an entire programming language? From an archival side of things, we're seeing questions like, what implicit themes are present in my collections that don't appear in the metadata or in that semi-structured data? And then in terms of in-depth research questions, we're seeing questions like, how has gang activity been represented and reported across regional newspapers through successive changes in government? And I just wanted to flag that this project also used natural language processing to identify articles, so similar to what Emily was speaking about in her presentation. Another question we've seen as an example is, how have gender gaps in publications and patenting differed between East and West Germany before and after reunification? TDM is, of course, also being used in-house within groups on campus, such as the Vice President's Office of Research and Innovation and in individual departments. For example, the Faculty of Medicine uses text mining to pull an annual report of their faculty's publications and grants, so updating the citation information. We're also seeing it being used to create databases of top researchers within specific disciplines or fields. And we're seeing it being used to comb through data to find undiscovered links between ongoing research projects in order to facilitate future funding requests. Okay, so these are the types of questions we've been getting at the Map and Data Library. But what is the Map and Data Library and how did we get involved? So the Map and Data Library at U of T was not created to support text and data mining. We've been around for decades. And it's a hub for qualitative and quantitative data discovery and analysis, for statistical and GIS data software and support, for support around programming languages, as well as support for research data management at U of T. So we're located right in the middle of U of T's main library on its main campus, and we provide cross-campus and cross-disciplinary support. So while we do have stronger ties with some departments that are heavily users of our resources, we do support the community as a whole. And this support that we provide is separated broadly into providing services, building collections, supporting technologies, and seeking and building out partnerships. So I'm just going to talk about each of these in brief, and then I'm going to talk about how kind of we've had to revamp some of these or angle some of these to support text and data mining. So in terms of the services that we provide, we're open for in-person reference, and we also provide support over email and via Zoom. And this reference support can include everything from where do I find this particular data set to long consultations on how to conduct a specific statistical analysis in R. We host dozens of open workshops each semester, and we also collaborate with faculty to run instructional sessions as part of their course materials. We develop online guides and tutorial pages as well for all of the software, languages, databases, and collections that we support. In terms of those collections, we build and support collections development activities around data and GIS, including licensing, being involved in developing and maintaining access portals to support content discovery and preservation, as well as policy development around licensing and around research data management. We also support a lot of technologies directly at MDL, and I'm just going to say MDL going forward for brevity, but it's the Map and Data Library, including ensuring that product licenses are renewed on time and that those products are properly configured and available in our lab computers. We also work to identify new technologies or products for our communities and to provide training on those technologies as part of our service. And all of this work, of course, is done in partnership with others at U of T and beyond. Supporting these types of services at a large multidisciplinary research institution requires the expertise and resources of many teams and disciplines. So it would be impossible for our team at MDL alone to serve this role. And I really want to highlight and talk about in a moment how these partnerships have been key to building our support of text and data mining. So that's what we do writ large. And over the past couple of years, we've moved to including text and data mining as part of all four of these areas of our support. So some of the text and data mining specific resources that we've developed at the Map and Data Library over the last couple of years include a whole section on our website devoted to text and data mining, which includes an overview of various tools and techniques, as well as a cheat sheet, which is kind of like a Google Sheet comparison, pros and cons and features of various common tools. We also offer workshops, including a text analysis tasting menu that gives kind of an intro to 6 popular tools, as well as workshops on specific tools and support for related technologies and languages such as Python or R. And I did want to highlight that support for beginner level workshops around programming, as well as things like data cleaning, which are so key to text mining, have really revved up as text and data mining projects have revved up as well. And we have also started to group and offer our workshops as part of learning tracks or roadmaps. So on the past, we may have had a track for data cleaning or data visualization. Now we have a roadmap for text and data mining as well. So this is a grouping of specific workshops that you could take in order to build up your skills in a particular area. Okay, so as I mentioned, I wanted to speak about and highlight that 4th point of support, which is partnerships. These partnerships, for the most part, were developed prior to text and data mining, but I cannot stress how key they are to us to providing support for TDM at U of T. So first and foremost, these partnerships include other libraries, both on and off campus. These are both college libraries and discipline-specific libraries, such as the Mill-Harris Library at the Rotman School of Management. We also work closely with the libraries at U of T's 2 other campuses, in particular with GIS and Data Services at the University of Toronto Mississauga campus and the Digital Scholarship Unit at the University of Toronto Scarborough campus. We are able to maintain close ties to these libraries largely with the support of their librarians or with liaisons or subject specialists that work really closely with those libraries. Unlike us at MDL, we're a little bit more general. We're more generalists. Liaisons have a deep knowledge of their disciplines and of the pain points of their departments, and this includes any TDM needs or pain points. These partnerships with other libraries and librarians are key to maintaining connections across campus and to really helping us build and support that ecosystem for text and data mining. The Map and Data Library, we open up our workshops to other librarians, and we also often offer workshops on new tools and techniques that are geared exclusively towards librarians and other staff who support research and teaching. These workshops are designed so that they can understand the tools that are available and feel more confident referring users to these tools, contacting us to work collaboratively on consultations with users that reach out, or sending people directly to us for additional information. They can also, and often will, send out emails to their faculty directly to notify them of new tools and training that become available. We also cross-promote with other libraries and librarians via Twitter and other social media platforms. So for example, we have a process whereby our tweets, say we have a new workshop, those are picked up by a central library Twitter, and a notification is sent to other libraries on campus so that they can retweet relevant content. We also have similar relationships as we do with these libraries with some departments on campus, as well as with individual professors and instructors at the university. Finally, notices on new workshops and tools are not just sent out to other libraries and faculties, but also to broader listservs on campus related to topics like data, GIS, or data visualization. And these include a mix of librarians, faculty, and students. We also promote and liaise with non-library, non-data specific listservs on campus outside of some of the centers I'll mention below, such as the Graduate Student Union. A second important partnership for us is our e-resourcing and licensing departments here on campus, who we work with for guidance on new licenses and on ensuring that license renewals have better access to text mining of the databases that we're purchasing, as well as to better understand questions on TDM rights to collections within existing licenses. As an example of a recent collaboration here, we worked with them to highlight databases in the library catalog that do allow for text mining. Our IT services, of course, is already a very important piece of this partnership puzzle, as they help us to acquire new hardware and batch install software. They also maintain tools, though, separately that we are able to use at the Map and Data Library to teach text and data mining, such as the U of T Jupyter Hub. This is an open source web application that we can use to teach Python workshops and text mining using Jupyter notebooks that users can log into using their campus IDs. So we really try to leverage tools such as this to help flatten the learning curve of programming and text analysis. We are also able, of course, to better support projects and initiatives related to text and data mining by collaborating with other centers on campus, such as CRIS, the DSI, and SciNet. So through CRIS, which is the Center for Research, Innovation, and Support, we have been able to cross-promote our workshops, as well as collaborate on new events and initiatives, such as a TDM panel of researchers at U of T, which was moderated by one of my colleagues. The DSI, or the Data Sciences Institute, is a tri-campus multidisciplinary hub for data science activity, and has also been a great resource for cross-promotion and collaboration. So what they do is they bring together researchers from various faculties to grow connections and enhance teaching and learning related to data sciences. And they're launching new initiatives all the time, which we can also leverage, such as the Data Sciences Cafe, which is a weekly event where any U of T researcher in need of help with data analysis for their project can reach out, and a small team of faculty, graduate, and undergraduate students studying statistics will provide advice on how to best analyze their specific data for their project. I also mentioned SciNet, but I'm going to talk about that as a case study in my next slide, so we'll skip that for now. Before we go into that, though, I did want to highlight that the Map and Data Library and U of T in general works with a larger community within Canada and beyond to better support TDM in libraries as an emerging field. This community includes other academic libraries, which we connect to via listservs and community meetings. It also includes up and coming librarians, as we do often offer our workshops as part of an iSkills program to library and information students here at U of T. And finally, we do try to connect and support the larger library community through special events and webinars. As an example, a colleague of mine recently presented a workshop on some of the TDM resources that U of T licenses to members of a consortia of universities in Canada's Atlantic provinces called CALL. U of T is also currently planning a larger TDM colloquium for May of 2023, which we hope will provide a North American forum for librarians and researchers working within libraries to discuss TDM as a growth area in academia. So if you are interested in that, or maybe interested in participating, please stay tuned for more information later in the year. So I wanted to highlight that these activities, while focusing in Canada, largely because of a shared context and licensing, are very much expanding and not limited to the Canadian context. Okay, so I wanted to highlight that SciNet as an example. So Web of Science raw data is a product that U of T licenses, and it includes metadata from 1900 to the present, over 63 million articles, so 63 million XML records, and 1 billion cited references. So you can imagine this is a lot of files. It's difficult to access and difficult to query. SciNet is a supercomputing center at the University of Toronto. So it hosts a supercomputer which U of T members can access to run more complex or resource-intensive calculations. We have worked with them and referred users to them in the past who have more complex data analysis needs, including people who are working with Web of Science. So what we did is we reached out through this existing partnership to ask them if they might be willing to help us present a better access point to this raw Web of Science XML to facilitate text mining on the data. They suggested they could host a PostgreSQL database. So they could take all metadata from these 63 million articles, extract elements from within that metadata, and create a whole bunch of linked tables. So an author table, an address table, a publications table. So kind of have an example of what that looks like when you're querying it, the environment that users will access it through. This was a great collaborative project. We had lots of back and forth. We added tables based on perceived needs from a text and data mining standpoint, so informed by previous requests we had seen. We added values from various elements or attributes to those tables. We tested SQL and Python queries, refined the queries in the data, and then worked on sample queries and documentation, which we sent to SciNet for input. This is now an active database. It's set up, people are using it, we're getting questions on it. We are supporting it at MDL, though SciNet is available for more complex queries as well. And SciNet's also helping us with annual updates. And this was such a success that we're actually loading Canadian and American patent data as separate PostgreSQL databases now as well to provide for text mining of that content, similar to the Web of Science data. Okay, so just briefly, the process by which we ended up creating this PostgreSQL database is similar to the workflow for any new tool or software used in text analysis. So usually a request comes in, usually through a liaison, but sometimes directly to the Map and Data Library. We examine that request. If we cannot fulfill it via existing resources, we will investigate if a resource exists. If it does, through a vendor, we might trial a new product. And I wanted to highlight that trials are always widely advertised. so that any group and library on campus who might benefit can be involved from the start, and to ensure we get the best feedback possible and understanding of all possible use cases. If that's not possible, we might reach out to one of our partners to ask for, see if we can develop an in-house solution, so ITS or sign-up. And then we have ongoing support once that product is launched. We provide training, firstly to other librarians, then more broadly, we develop tutorial pages. And then of course, this resource can then be suggested to a user directly the next time a similar consultation comes up. So in terms of the text and data mining tools that we currently support directly, that Map and Data Library currently supports directly, and that were acquired or decisions were made to support via this process, these include a suite of software and tools, several programming languages, a couple of PostgreSQL databases, and some computational resources. And of course, I would like to mention that computational resources are also provided by other research nodes on campus that are specific to individual departments. Okay, so very finally, in the 2 minutes that I have left, I wanted to talk about a brief study, which is the licensing of ProQuest TDM Studio at the University of Toronto. So this is similar to Emily's story. We had a faculty member in economics that reached out to Sean Forbes, my colleague who is the director of the Mill Harris Library at the Rotman School of Management, for text mining access to the New York Times. Sean Forbes went and talked with our licensing team at U of T, and that person mentioned that she was aware of a new product from ProQuest. So this was the summer of 2019. So a conversation was started with ProQuest, and we went forward with a pilot for one project. So that project that was looking at housing ads in the New York Times on Sundays over a 20-year period. So this was a word frequency analysis, and that was in December 2019. That went well. And in May of 2020, ProQuest asked if Sean wanted to be a development partner on the advisory board for this new product. That also went well, and U of T signed a one-year trial contract in November of 2020, and then all was still going well. So in May 2021, we signed a full contract. Of course, there was a lot of negotiations on pricing and access throughout, and the Map and Data Library, along with others across campus, were involved heavily from the start. So the head of our department, Marcel Fortin, was also very involved in the licensing of this product as well. As soon as the license was signed, a note was sent out to faculty across many departments and across the all librarians at U of T. And access to the product is now supported by both the Mill Harris Library and the Map and Data Library through in-person and Zoom consultations. The MDL has also developed tutorial pages with details on access and how-to guides. We have developed dedicated workshops for this tool, and we have kind of beefed up our Python and R resources and support. And we, of course, provide continuing feedback and have conversations with ProQuest as questions come to us to kind of identify pain points and improve the tool for researchers doing text mining of the content moving forward. And that is it for me. I'm happy to answer any questions at the end, but I'll pass it on for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Kara, and thank you, Emily, for really talking through both of your use cases and how you were able to utilize TDM Studio in a couple different scenarios. So it's great to hear how things happen in the real world and how the product is actually implemented in different disciplines, and also how the library has really been crucial in support of text and data mining efforts, regardless if it's TDM Studio or not, within all of the institutions that we've worked with. And one of the pieces that I really just wanted to point out is that TDM Studio, due to the content that's available through ProQuest, is really applicable across all types of disciplines. We've heard a couple different examples today, but we hear everything from questions around, you know, how is a company mentioned in the press and maybe how does that affect their stock price? It could be anything from following innovation through ProQuest dissertations and theses. What does someone's career look like? We obviously had a lot of research done on the latest trends with COVID and news coverage, really being able to bring together current news, historical news, along with ProQuest dissertations and theses, and then also being able to take some of those results outside of TDM Studio and combine those with other data sets or bring in data sets within TDM Studio to add additional context and application to different disciplines, whether that be patent data. We've also had people commingle it also with census data to really answer a really broad set of questions from epidemiology, as we heard before, in health matters, economic matters, business tracing, innovation, and also things like climate change, and even directly within digital humanities, like what's some of the historical plays and what do those look like, and was there plagiarism and those types of things. So the kinds of questions that can be asked where TDM Studio can help to answer those questions are endless due to the different types of disciplines and the different types of users that TDM Studio can help address. And I think there's two pieces, because we heard from not only a researcher today, but also from a librarian about what are some of the benefits from both of those perspectives. So if we think about the librarian, just because we heard from Kara most recently, really that streamlined access to content. So having a place where you can directly point researchers to, because if they don't really want to wait months to gain access to content. So having resources where they can get started very quickly. It has the content that they're looking for, which is sometimes difficult to obtain, especially current news and those types of things. And a solution that is targeted. It is designed for research. So being able to support all of the different aspects within research, and also further enables these partnerships from researchers to faculty to students, and allows the library to still play a consultative role, because obviously they know a lot about the content and how to help really choose that content that best addresses some of the questions that you're asking. So really facilitating that role in order to further meet the need of our researchers. And I would say even from the beginning, when we launched TDM Studio with researchers, the main driver that we see for TDM Studio is really access to the content. So part of research, and part of the most difficult and time-consuming, probably not the most difficult, but the most time-consuming portion when you're doing text analysis, is really just getting access to the content, cleaning it, preparing it, not even yet getting to the analysis part. So being able to make that more efficient and easy for researchers, and having them be able to access content, whether it be, you know, the New York Times or smaller papers, but all types, thousands of news titles, and ProQuest dissertations and theses, has been what we've seen as the main drivers for TDM Studio. The rights are cleared within any content that you see. So part of the launch of TDM Studio was us negotiating the rights for access to text and data mine that content. And then we created an environment around it that not only supports research for those who know how to code, but we've also implemented data visualizations for those who don't know how to code. But the goal is also within TDM Studio, we've seen it used for learning, whether that be library workshops, directly in the classroom for group activities, but really being able to meet the needs of a diverse group of people. And with that said, really on my last slide here is really looking at the different types of skills across different disciplines, across different researchers, maybe even within the same discipline, the skills on whether they know how to use R and Python, or you just want to introduce the concepts of text and data mining and having a solution that can address both of those. We have really what we call a workbench or a development environment where you have full access to not only the full text, but all of the metadata, where you can write code against it. You have a virtual machine with storage and computing capacity through a Jupyter notebook. So using a familiar development environment to help those researchers, again, just be as efficient as possible and get started through their research. And the other piece that we launched after we launched the sort of development side was we have 3 data visualizations, including topic modeling, geographic analysis, and sentiment analysis, where a researcher who doesn't know how to code can create and interact with these data visualizations to ultimately begin to see trends and patterns that they wouldn't have been able to detect from just looking at a few articles, or they wouldn't have been able to read, say, 10,000 different articles to then be able to make those connections. So really just interrogating data in a way visually that wasn't necessarily easy to do, especially for those who don't know how to code. And it's a great way to introduce the concepts of text and data mining. So with that said, I really wanted to leave us with plenty of time to be able to answer any questions. I know there's been some questions coming through, but I really wanted to be able to answer any questions. We do offer trials. So if you have a request for a demo or a trial, you can send an email here to tdmstudio@clarivate.com, where you can get more information from our website. So I'm not sure I really introduced myself in the beginning, but I'm Mindy Pozenel, the Director of Product Management for TDM Studio and our analytics products. So Jess, I guess I'll hand it over to you to monitor or moderate any questions that have come through.
Sure. Yeah, we've received a few. I know Emily may have to leave us a little bit early today. So there was a question that came in for her about the word minoritize and where it comes from and how they've been using it. Emily, I know you answered it in the chat and everyone should be able to see that answer, but if you'd like to talk more about that, give you that opportunity.
It's actually, I'm just using the terminology that my colleagues use. I'm not particularly an expert on these sorts of issues, but it's used to sort of be able to encompass not only actual minorities, like people whose groups are smaller than the dominant group in size of a particular region or country or community, but also allows you to include women and people of lower socioeconomic strata who may not be numerically minorities, but have been marginalized and devalued historically.
Thank you, Emily. That's great.
And I'm going to drop off to go teach my class.
Sure.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
I totally understand. Thank you so much, Emily. And Kara, there are a few questions coming into you. Let's see. So could you elaborate on how the TDM librarians collaborate with subject liaison librarians? For example, are the subject liaisons involved in the initial consultation? Do they remain involved in the project? So I know you did answer, but let's, maybe we can talk through it a little bit more here too.
Yeah, absolutely. So I just posted a specific example of something that just happened 2 days ago, where we actually had a librarian who's the liaison for psychology loop me into a question where somebody was looking to do a specific type of analysis technique on dynamic time series data in the field of psychiatry, which I don't know anything much about in terms of psychiatry. So that's kind of like an ongoing back and forth where you have a liaison who knows the databases and the data structure, and I know the tools and techniques that might be available and applicable for that type of analysis. So we will have that back and forth. Sometimes it will be a straight handoff. Oftentimes, for example, someone's been working with TDM Studio, they already have their data, but then they have some questions on the particular type of analysis that they're trying to run, and that question might just get completely forwarded to me. They've already found it. The tools, and they're in the right place. They just need some additional guidance. So sometimes it is a straight back and forth, and sometimes it's a handoff. But oftentimes questions do come in to liaisons or to individual libraries, and then that person is then sent on to the map and data library, or the map and data library is looped in, depending on what exactly the question is.
Great, thank you. And there's another one for you about, do you have tips or recommendations for librarians who are looking to create ongoing relationships with both campus departments and external partners? How do you let potential partners know what the library has to offer them and the support that the library can provide them?
Yeah, so we are pretty proactive in terms of our outreach. So reaching out to maybe other departments to ask what gaps they have or what gaps are forming that we might be able to help with, and how we can help. Once we've had kind of an initial contact or formed a bit of a relationship, we do maintain a list for some of these things just because it's easier, and there's so many different groups on campus to keep track of. We do forward a lot of information emails and social media posts, as well as invitations to our workshops and training, anything that we think may be of interest. Most of our workshops are open workshops, so doesn't matter who you are, you're welcome to attend and learn from those workshops. In terms of external partners, it's a little bit different. It is definitely key to keep those lines of communication open. So oftentimes, even if there's nothing actively going on or there's nothing particularly wrong with any of those resources that we have, I'll often kind of reach out every few months just to check in with an update. And that's something that we do with ProQuest TDM Studio, just to check in with an update on kind of the types of questions that we're seeing or any roadblocks that anyone has come up on. And that's important, just to keep those lines of communication open, so that when you do need support or you need to kind of dig a little bit deeper into those relationships, it's not kind of something that's coming out of thin air and you haven't been in touch with anybody for the last 10 months. So I think that those are kind of the key things. It is definitely a long, drawn out, it's definitely a long process. Oftentimes it takes quite a while to find the right person and to build those relationships. But once you have them, it's just kind of keeping in touch and making sure that everybody is looped into everything that's going on, so that they feel that they can reach out to you when you need support. And so you have that foundation to stand on.
Thanks, Kara. Mindy, do you have anything to add as far as how, TDM Studio team works with the library and in this partnership effort? You're on mute, Mindy. Sorry.
I know this. So we do a lot of things with our different subscribing libraries, and we have a couple different workshops that we offer also. So we can either teach you how to give that workshop to additional library liaisons or faculty, or we can help you and give it ourselves. So we have a success team that really helps make sure, because these are somewhat new resources, and making sure that you guys have the right information to disseminate, whether it be to your liaisons or other collections or faculty, whether it be through marketing or providing workshops. We also provide direct support to the researchers themselves. So if they have questions about, maybe it's specifically about the content and how the script behaves against that content, or if it's specific fields, or just some different approaches, we do offer one-on-one support to help make sure that our researchers are successful in that way also.
Thanks, Mindy. And I have another question. I think I'm going to pose it to both of you. So maybe Mindy, you want to answer from your perspective first. What is the impact to adding text mining access to the costs of licenses? And so I'll let Mindy answer first, and then I'll have Kara step in as well.
Yeah, I mean, I can speak from the TDM Studio perspective and ProQuest. So TDM Studio is an additional license on top of the content that you're subscribing to. And, that's for a couple different reasons. We do have to pay royalties for all of that content to the content providers, and TDM Studio does incorporate the computing environment. So you have your AWS environment already built in. So you have computing capacity, you have storage, everything's included within that. So it is an additional annual subscription for the library or subscribing faculty member. And then I'll let
I guess in terms of licenses, there is an additional cost to most of these things. U of T is a big institution. We can't license everything, and cost is a huge factor, and of course in any part of any negotiations. So we always have to try to think, and we do try to keep track. I actually have a spreadsheet where I keep track of kind of the types of questions that we have related to text analysis, in order to kind of better tailor our resources and our purchases to tools that meet the needs that we're actually seeing. And then, of course, this is also why we've chosen to build some solutions in-house. So I know someone mentioned dimensions in the Q&A. That's something that we had looked into as well. But we've kind of chosen to go forward with some in-house solutions to providing access to some of the same data, such as the patent data. And that's simply a kind of an analysis that we have to make in terms of what other partnerships and resources can we leverage. And of course, what funding do we have at the moment for these types of licenses? And it's all related to actively keeping track of the questions that we're receiving, as I said, and trying to choose products that meet those needs.
Thank you. That's great. Okay, I've got a question from Mindy. It says, do you know if ProQuest has a data bank of university catalogs with their course offering? either in general or semester quarterly? I'm not sure if are you understand?
Yeah, I understand that question. So
Okay.
we don't really have a product where we like keep track of like all universities and their course offerings and what those were, how they change or where they're offered. So I know there are some sites out there that do that, but I'm not aware that anywhere at ProQuest or Clarivate that we have a database that tracks and updates those.
Okay, thank you. And then how does TDM Studio compare with other tools for bibliometric analysis, like citations, publishing data, and for example, tools like Lens or Dimensions?
Yeah, I'm not as familiar with all of those different tools, but I would say I'll just mention some of the more unique aspects of TDM Studio that are different from a lot of the offerings in the market. And one is being access to full text. So when you subscribe to TDM Studio, the content that you get from ProQuest, if you subscribe to full text, then you get access to text and data mine, not only the citation data, but the full text content. And it's not just open access content. So it's today's newspapers. So today's newspapers are loaded around 8 a.m. So we'll call it almost real time. You have access to everything from, if we're taking the New York Times, for example, from about 170 years worth of coverage, including today. So that's one of the, I would say, the larger differentiators. And it also includes really that computing capacity and the AWS services, really like the entire environment that you need to perform your research. But I know, Kara, you said that you guys looked at Dimensions, so maybe you can tell me if that answers the question or not.
Yeah, I think the corpus is a big difference, right? Like Dimensions is pulling in data from a whole bunch of different sources, not just publications. It's pulling in patent data, clinical trial data, and it's kind of doing a lot of manual cleanup and normalization of that data so that you can kind of bring all of these things together in a single environment. In terms of like the ProQuest TDM Studio, it is full text access to most of the databases that U of T licenses from ProQuest, which is something like 300 and something now. It's quite a lot. And just to highlight what Mindy said about the newspapers, that is really where we're seeing the demand for this. When we teach this tool, we teach it specifically in the context of mining newspaper content, because that is such kind of a high value area for the research that's being done. And I think one of the examples that I mentioned was that kind of looking at newspapers in Central and South America and certain areas to kind of see how gang activity was being reported across successive changes in government. And that was very much like 10 years ago to today. So she had a very specific time period in mind. And because it is so current, it's a great resource for that type of research.
Fantastic. Thank you, Kara. We had a question about Dimensions, so thank you for answering that. Okay, it also says, sorry if I missed it, but is there already existing description of the corpus that can be examined or included in a paper or for scope and reproducibility reasons? This is sometimes an issue for Scopus or Web of Science. What is or isn't in the data is the question. I don't know if that is specifically to TDM Studio, I think. Mindy?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'll take the question in two parts. And one is the description of the corpus depends on your institution and what your institution subscribes to. So if we take a look at your particular institution, we can provide a list of titles that are available within TDM Studio. So we can provide you an Excel spreadsheet. But with regards to reproducibility, so when you perform your research and the documents that you've chosen to do your research again, you can export that list of citations with all of the unique identifiers for the documents. So you know that you have the list of documents that were used within your research. You can export any of your scripts if you need to provide those scripts for reproducibility. And even if your peer reviewers need access to TDM Studio in order to execute some of those scripts and verify your results, we can provide those peer reviewers with access to TDM Studio too. So it's a sort of combination of different things to help the reproducibility sort of process.
Thank you. And that concludes all the questions we've received. I'm really thankful. Kara, thank you for joining us today. And thank you to Emily for sharing all of your wonderful work. It's been great.
Yeah, I'll just echo Jess. Thanks so much to Emily, Kara, Mindy for taking the time to speak with us today. And thank you to Jess for moderating the Q&A. And thank you to our attendees for your questions and comments. I'd like to remind our viewers that we did record today's program, so be on the lookout for a follow-up email from Choice and ACRL with a link to the recording. Also, if you have a few minutes after the presentation to fill out a brief survey, we would really appreciate it. So thanks again to all of you out there for joining us. We hope you learned something new from the session, and we hope to see you again in the near future on another webinar.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.